Morning, good evening, good afternoon. Today is the 19th of June, 2024. The Zanu PF government launched the country's new currency, the ZiG, in April. And yet, it is quite common to hear many Zimbabweans on the ground saying they still have to see the ZiG paper money. And yet, it's supposed to be the currency that should be readily available to every Zimbabwean out there. Best they have seen is the swipe, the electronic money. Here is somebody explaining the pitfalls of this deliberately created shortage of the ZiG.
To understand that how much currency is said to be optimal, or how much currency is said to be optimal for relation or for the economy to function very well. According to some telling last 3 weeks, you get that Zimbabwe's GDP is about 40 billion US dollars. So if you look at the international best practice, close to 25% of GDP must be money. That is in circulation, whether not in coins and both money. So what is important here is if you calculate 25% of 40 billion, we'll get about 10 billion US dollars. So Zimbabwe's economy should have at least 10 billion US dollars circulating as currency. But now that we are using a multi-currency system, assuming that by the statement by the minister, they indicated that 85%, Zimbabwe is 85% dollarized, which means 15% should be local currency. So if you do your maths, you realize that 15% of 10 billion worth of US dollars, how much is that? You get about $1.5 billion. So we are expecting, under a normal functioning economy, a currency of ZiG worth 1.5 billion US dollars to be in circulation. But look at what's happening right now. Only close to 30% of the 80 million US dollars worth of currency has been disbursed. So what does it mean, therefore? It means that there is literally no currency. The stability that we are saying the ZiG is stable is a lie because there is no current stock of in the market.
There we have it. Zanu PF is creating the impression that the ZiG is stable, but this is a fostered stability. They've made it very difficult to get hold of the ZiG. And yet, particularly for those in the rural areas, this is the currency that they should use for their day-to-day economic activities. The swipe is not readily available in the rural areas, or even for some of the urban poor. If you're selling tomatoes at a street corner, you don't have the swipe machine to facilitate that economic transaction. If you want to use your swipe, you've got to go to a supermarket. So it has squeezed out the vendors. They should be able to trade in the currency. And for them, you cannot expect somebody who's selling tomatoes at a street corner to be selling in US dollar. Yes, of course, if you've got US dollar, you can pay for your tomatoes in US dollar. But ordinarily, they are selling to individuals who will not have access to US dollar. So they would rather pay in the local currency. And so making the ZiG so hard to get is really causing untold financial hardships on the ordinary Zimbabweans. Even those who have got access to the swipe. Minister of Finance has put in a 2% charge for every time you have this swipe transaction. So it's over and above paying the normal sales tax for whatever you're buying, if it's in the shops, and bank charges, etc., etc. You pay another 2% for using the swipe. This is additional tax. And if you want to avoid it, you have no choice, because the ZiG is not available on the market. I think the majority of ordinary people are not usually taken into consideration when one is discussing economic policies. In other words, they are below the radar. But if the truth was to be told, they are really having a tough time. The lack of the ZiG on the market is making their lives very difficult. Excuse me. And this is all being done to give the impression that Zimbabwe's new currency is very stable. If it was readily available, of course, it would be another matter. If people would readily change their US dollar for the ZiG, it would be another matter. I think this is really unacceptable. As much as one would like to see a stable currency in a country, to impose a stable currency on the back of other people paying dearly for it is unacceptable. Zanu PF is making the ordinary Zimbabweans pay dearly for the ZiG stability. People need to have some currency in this day and age to carry out their day-to-day economic activities. The US dollar cannot be expected to be readily available as a currency to fill in the gap of what people need for their day-to-day activities. Those who have got US dollar account apparently can withdraw from even the ATM US dollars. But those who do not have US accounts, you cannot withdraw US dollars. And if you cannot get the ZiG in cash either, it leaves you with absolutely no other option but to use the swipe. And yet the swipe is not readily available to the ordinary person. If you're going from Mavuku, for instance, into town using a combi. If you don't have a US dollars, one would expect you would have the ZiG to pay for your fee. How else are you going to get there? Having money in your swipe account is no good to the combi because they don't have the equipment, the technology to get the payment through the swipe. You can't go to the bank and withdraw ZiG. You can't go to an auto ATM and withdraw US dollars, even if you have got ZiG in your account. Because you cannot go to the bank and instruct your bank manager to transfer so many ZiGs to US dollars so that he could withdraw the cash at the ATM or at the till, at the counter. I think this issue of the ZiG and the economic hardship it's causing is one of the reasons why there was a recent report saying that Zimbabwe is one of the countries in the world where it is really difficult to do business. And I think one can also say that Zimbabwe is one of those countries in which it is really difficult for ordinary people just to survive. Everything has got to be a struggle. Everything. The shortage of the ZiG, shortage of the ZiG means if you were to go to the bank, the chances are they probably will have a limit to how much in ZiG cash you can withdraw. On a daily basis. And so to withdraw whatever you need to see you through for the month, you may find you'd have got to go to the bank 3 or 4 times, or even more, in a month. Because what you're allowed to withdraw, the maximum you're allowed to withdraw, is not enough to see you through for the month. And that is, of course, those who have got ready access to the banks. In the rural areas, there's no banks. So they've got to make do however best they can. Zimbabwe is a failed state. Zanu PF's failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections serves only to confirm that status. And as long as the country remains a failed state, there will be no meaningful economic recovery. And these problems caused by currency shortage and so forth will be part and parcel of the regime. Yes, the regime is using every trick in the book to stop the ZiG losing its value. But when you look at the amount of suffering that it is causing to ordinary people, you honestly have to say to yourself, this is criminal. This should not be allowed to happen in this day and age. No one should have to live like this in this day and age. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.